but there's so much room for growth if I just keep going. It's a completely different life. There's a big difference between it being your reality, it being your identity, and it being a feeling. And we all have feelings, but those feelings don't have to be our identities.
Let me be a kinder person. Let me be more compassionate. Let me be better. So the lesson is simple. If you struggle with self-worth, you are not alone. It's what you're doing with that. Let that drive you.
Next Level Nation, welcome back to another very special, as always, episode of Next Level University, where we teach you how to level up your life, your love, your health, and your wealth. We hope you enjoyed our latest episode, number 874, with the one and only Britt Frank. Today, for episode number 875, it is Motivation Monday, why feeling less than isn't always bad. So shout out to Jenna. Jenna recommended a book called The Courage to be Disliked. And Alan and I are both listening to that. I think Alan's far ahead of me. But one of the points in the book was there's a difference between feeling inferior and having an inferiority complex where you inherently are less than. There's a difference between feeling less than and just being less than and having that be your identity. So I have told this story once or twice on the podcast before, but I think it's important, and I think it's an important story and lesson because a lot of people have probably felt this way before in their lives. I was at a party one time with Alan, and this was very early in our rekindled friendship because I remember you invited me to this, and I was like, yeah, I'll go because I'm friends with Alan. My buddy Matt was there, and it was just catching up with a lot of people I hadn't seen in a long time. And I was definitely under the influence of alcohol. There was alcohol involved for sure. I played a lot of beach volleyball and spike ball, and that was truly wonderful. It was a good time. It was a good time. But as the night was winding down, I saw a couple of girls that I found attractive, and I went up to them and started talking to them. And I don't know how the conversation transitioned. I don't remember. Again, there was alcohol involved. But one of the girls said to me, Kev, I would never be with somebody like you. Like, look at how short you are. And I remember saying, first of all, I was like unreasonably offended and unreasonably hurt. That hurt me very, very deeply. So my natural reaction was to ego up. And I said, do you know how much money I make? Because I was making a lot of money at the time. And think about that, right? So for most of my life, I have been the small kid, the short kid. And that's always really made me feel less than. I've always been an athlete, but one of the reasons I was such a good athlete is because I was always small. One of the reasons I was a good baseball player is because I was willing to put myself through pain because I didn't always have the other gifts that people had. If you think about podcasting, one of the reasons I feel like I'm a decent podcaster is just because for most of the time I felt behind Alan. I think feeling less than is kind of part of my story. And if you look at Never Quit Kid, why am I the Never Quit Kid? Because for most of my life I wanted to because I always felt behind. That, now, for a long time, that was part of my identity of not good enough, not smart enough, not talented enough, not good looking enough, whatever it may be. And that's something I've been able to shift. But the reason I was able to shift that, and the reason you can shift that too, is it's not your identity. It's not who you are as a person. Look, sometimes you are less than in a certain arena. If you're starting a podcast today, maybe you're less than in terms of your skills than Alan and I. But it doesn't mean you will be forever. It doesn't mean you're not a valuable human being. It doesn't mean you're not worthy of love. It just means in that arena, you have a long way to go, and that's okay. That's empowering. That's an empowering thing. For me, this is my story. This is something I've dealt with for a long time, and that's one of the reasons I wanted to do the episode. I think that if you have convinced yourself that you will always be less than, that you will always be behind, then you're going to find a way to make that identity line up with your story. But if you can just say to yourself, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm not as good as I want to be. Maybe I'm not as talented as I want to be right now, but there's so much room for growth if I just keep going. It's a completely different life. There's a big difference between it being your reality, it being your identity, and it being a feeling. And we all have feelings, but those feelings don't have to be our identities.
Why is it that some people who grow up with everything, all the education, all the opportunities, amazing parents, amazing homes, amazing vacations, why is it that some of those people end up very not that hardworking? They end up somewhat lackadaisical, somewhat complacent. And then there's some people that life has literally stepped on and had horrible childhoods and grew up around alcohol abuse and toxic relationships and toxic masculinity, and they had to work and earn every single thing they've ever needed. My barber, I was getting a haircut yesterday, was telling his story to me and how at 15 he got kicked out of the house and he had to work and work his way to earn a living because he was homeless. And there's certain people who feel less than because they were told they were less than or abused in some way or talked down to or around toxic masculinity or kicked out of their house. But what they do about that is what we're talking about in this episode. So it's not the feeling of not good enough that we're condemning here. It's what are you doing with that feeling? Some people take that feeling of not good enough and then they develop this ego, this arrogance of I'm awesome and I'm great, and we call that self-delusion. Being great by default without any effort, without any commitment, without any virtue isn't a good thing. And so my main point here that I want to give to you in this Motivation Monday is I actually think that feeling less than and having lower self-worth is actually better than having inflated self-worth. So everyone out there, think of that person who doesn't really study that much, doesn't really learn that much, isn't that into personal development, doesn't really work that hard, is genuinely fairly lazy if you really were to think about it, but yet they have an opinion about everything. They think they know everything. They talk about everything as if they know everything. And so I don't know anything about gardening, so you're not going to hear me talk about gardening. I don't know anything about cars, you're not going to hear me talk about cars. The things that I don't know anything about, I'm not going to talk about because I believe that I have something called inward humility. These people that I'm referring to are the opposite of that. These are the people with inflated self-worth that have inward arrogance. Inside, they think they know everything, even though they placate and they make it sound like they're modest and they pretend to be modest. In reality, they think they know it all, which is why they're not studying, they're not reading, they're not listening to this podcast. If you're listening to this show or viewing this on YouTube, you most likely struggle with self-worth like Kevin and I did. It's what you do with that feeling of inadequacy. And so I had a friend growing up. Kevin knows of this person. He grew up in the same hometown that we did. And he actually had a surgery on his stomach. He had 2/3 of his intestines taken out as a kid. And he had these scars on his abs. And he was really insecure about it. And so what did he do? He felt less than, he felt insecure, and he started working out. He started working out way before anyone else started working out. This person was kind of bullied, really not that popular, especially in middle school and then in high school as well. But I remember the very first workout I ever did with weights was actually in his basement. And he was already pretty far along on the journey. He was pretty ripped. He had muscles. No one else at that time really had muscles. Kevin might have, honestly, because you were working out in high school as well. But I certainly didn't. I wasn't working out hard in high school. And so this person, I eventually found out the reason they started working out and reading fitness magazines and tracking their food and eating better nutrition and working out with weights is because they felt so insecure and they wanted the scars not to show. And the way the scars wouldn't show is by having abs. And so that's a perfect example. Now this person in their early 30s is in way better shape than, 99% of people. And my question for everyone listening or watching is this: if it wasn't for those scars and the deep insecurity and the self-worth issues, would he have ever even started working out? Think of someone in high school who was an all-star athlete with very little effort. They were naturally talented and they had an arrogant ego of I'm awesome. I bet you they're more out of shape now than they used to be. Whereas this person was kind of stepped on, bullied, hurt, made fun of. They ended up in better shape. Do you see how there are some people who are out of shape and okay with it because they still think the world of themselves? And then there are other people who they have this issue of like, I feel like I'm less than. Let me go work harder. Let me go have more virtue. Let me be a kinder person. Let me be more compassionate. Let me be better. So the lesson is simple. If you struggle with self-worth, you are not alone. It's what you're doing with that. Let that drive you. I told Kevin this. You have a chip on your shoulder, so do I. Mm-hmm. We both grew up without fathers. I said, don't let the chip drive you, drive the chip. But whatever you do, don't take the chip off your shoulder. That's what makes you extraordinary. And so if you're out there listening or watching this, you have a chip too, whatever it is. You don't feel good enough? Okay. What are you going to do about it? You don't feel in shape enough? Okay, go learn fitness. Go hire a coach. Listen to a podcast about fitness. There's things you can do to feel better about yourself and allow the feeling of inadequacy, allow the self-worth to drive you to be better. At the end of the day, getting better is the solution, and that will help you transform your identity into someone who is good enough. I've seen it happen to Kevin. I've seen it happen to me. And the one place I don't want you to end up is in the place of inflated delusion self-worth. The person who really isn't fulfilled but pretends they are. Who really isn't that confident but pretends they are. The person who really isn't that intelligent and doesn't actually have that much knowledge but has an opinion about everything, right? I don't want you to be in that place. I want you to be in the place with sincere merit, the place where you're motivated and driven. The feeling of insecurity, the feeling of self-doubt, the feeling of not good enough, let it drive you to go get better. And I promise you that feeling will erode over time.
And you have to admit it first. I think we're all afraid to admit that, hey, I feel less than in this situation. I remember I told Alan, I said, I just don't feel smart enough. That was me saying, hey, I feel less than when it comes to intelligence than most people. And then we found out, okay, this is the plan to change that. And now here we are, however many years later, and there's been a lot of books read and a lot of TED Talks watched. And now that chip on my shoulder, I am in control of instead of vice versa. So I second everything Alan said. Next
Kev, real
level.
Quick before we go.
Yeah, sure.
So sorry.
Quick. No, you're good.
So Kev, you're 4 years straight, 45 minutes of learning every single day?
I've probably missed it. I've definitely missed in the 4 years, but in the last year and a half, I have not missed.
Okay. Would that be possible if you didn't have that moment with me and Brant talking business and leverage buyouts and you coming to me saying, I'm not intelligent enough?
No. I believe that I needed necessity. Learning for me for the sake of learning wasn't good enough. I think learning for the sake of not feeling less than is important. I do. I believe that that's why I do a lot of the things I do. And as long as you can reformulate your relationship with it and be the driver and not be the passenger, that's the important step, because you have to be in control of it and you have to use it as a weapon and not have it used against you. So I do believe that's the play. 100%. Next level nation, if you feel like you're alone, if you feel like you can't talk about the stuff you want to talk about, if you feel like you have big goals, big dreams, big aspirations, and the people around you do not support you, they don't lift you up, and you don't feel comfortable telling them what you really want out of life, join our private Facebook group, Next Level Nation. Totally private. There will be nobody in there that can see what you're talking about. If your family judges you, they're not in there. If your friends judge you, they're not in there. Totally private, totally safe, and totally free. And there's posts every day, and you can meet some other next-level humans who want what you want out of life. Link in the show notes below. Click it, and we will let you in.
What if you're out there right now, and you're like, I've been listening to these podcasts, I've been reading these books, and I've been vision boarding, and I've been doing all the work, and I've been meditating, but podcasts and books are great, absolutely necessary, absolutely critical. Drown yourself in positivity and new information and tips and tricks and tactics and strategies, 100%. But they're not going to get you the results you need as much as a peak performance partner, someone who will hold you accountable, someone on the journey with you. Our relationships with others are the main driver of our human nature. If Kevin and I both didn't agree together to never miss an episode, there's no possibility me alone or him alone would be 875 episodes in, never having missed. So if you don't know where to find a peak performance partner, Next Level Live is going to be a room of 50 like-minded people who all are also looking for more people in their community like them. There's a big difference between listening to a song on Spotify or YouTube and then going to the concert. Come to the concert, March 26th, Next Level Live. 4 speakers, half a day, only $97. Bring a friend. It's cheap. It's an unbelievable hotel. I mean, this hotel is very, very expensive. So the ticket is cheap, but we are not making a lot of money on this event. As a matter of fact, we are not making any money on this event. So the tickets are cheap on purpose to provide an opportunity for us to meet our amazing community. If you're out there listening, don't just listen. Come meet us in person. I promise you, the people you meet in this room will absolutely change your life. And these tickets will sell out no matter what. Dr. Taryn and Tori are both going to be promoting to their communities, and I want to make sure the Next Level community gets their tickets as soon as possible because we're going to sell this room out.
Next Level Nation tomorrow, episode number 876, last week's live podcast, 10 must-haves for a next level life, 5 for myself, 5 from Alan. Mine are better. As always, we love you, appreciate you, grateful for each and every one of you. And at NLU, we do not have fans, we have family. Please, if this episode moved you in any way, share it with somebody you love or leave us a review. We appreciate every single one of them, and we read every single one of them and send them to the team. So we love you. No fans, just family.
Talk to you soon.